Thanks a lot.
You improved a lot during this chairmanship, you know, having to deal with all these nationalities, right? But I must say, really, IGLO is very, very useful association. We are active member, and we exchange a lot of important information via that. And especially in these times, it was so important for us to be active here and to exchange really important and useful information. Okay, so Sergey, the floor is yours now, and thanks for reminding me. And apology, Simon, again.
No problem at all.
Well, thank you, Draško. Thank you, Simon. I was also impressed by your pronunciation of my name. I wish I had your skills, not for Slovenian, but for other foreign names, obviously. And most of all, thank you, Draško. Thank you, Boštjan, and the whole team at SBRA for giving me the opportunity, the honor actually, to present you the outlook for Slovenian presidency from, well, what is now less than 2 months, which begins in less than 2 months from today. And I really feel like at home in this network. So it is actually quite a pleasure to tell you the truth, actually the first, so to say, open presentation of our presidency program in the area of research and innovation. So this would be my first, especially in such a large audience. I prepared, and they asked me to prepare some slides so that you can follow also on screen what I'm saying. I will try to share them now. And usually, so I hope you can see them. I don't see the chat window now. So if somebody will write something in the chat.
We can see it. We can see it, Sergey.
You can see the slides,
yes.
But yes, okay. I've managed to open also the chat window now. So if there's an overlay, let me know because I've got some windows.
It appears there's an overlay, at least on my screen. So maybe it's better if we take care of the chat and.
Just a second. How is it now?
Right now, it seems to be okay.
It's okay. All right. So I will, this, as you see, this is not an official, actually you don't see, but I know that this is not an official presentation of at least the graphically, it's not an official presentation of our program. So I need to make a disclaimer, first of all, that I can present you these slides, but unfortunately our Foreign Office doesn't yet allow us to distribute in written form our program because it has not yet been officially adopted by the government. So what you will see is the content, and this is very stable at this point. It's of course we are adapting it and tweaking constantly as we go along the progress in the Council that the Presidency of Portugal is making at the moment. But unfortunately, I cannot then give permission to the SBRA to distribute these slides. So just as a heads up.
Taken into account, don't worry.
Okay. So I'll dig right in. They gave me something like 15 to 20 minutes, so I will not go into all the details, but this is quite comfortable time to present our program. And to begin with a little bit of a context, there are these 3 things on screen is what particularly influenced our presidency program. As you know, Slovenia's presidency to the Council is part of the trio presidency of Germany, Portugal, and Slovenia. So we've prepared our trio program for these 18 months jointly together with these 2 countries. So as a last part of this trio, we would like to see us a little bit as those persons who come up into the room when the party is over to sweep the room, and maybe just take some last candies that are left over from the party. So obviously, if it was a party, then the German presidency was a warm-up to this, and now we are somewhere in the climax of the party during the Portuguese presidency. But it's more probable that we will not be just sweeping up, but we would organize more like an after party. With the Slovenian presidency, the trio roadmap should be fulfilled and all the common priorities hopefully addressed. This is our aim. So this is the first context. We are part of the trio program, which is public and well available. Second is that COVID is still here. So we had to, when preparing the presidency, we had to prepare for possible delays in the work of the council. Hybrid or video meetings are not as effective as we hoped for, but progress is now going very well, I must say, during the Portuguese presidency. But also we had to prepare a plan B, obviously, for physical meetings and events that we are planning. So I'm getting my vaccination today, and many of us also are getting them these days. So hopefully we will have as much physical meetings as possible and events as well, but you never know. It's very unpredictable, this disease. And the last one, I heard our Prime Minister on news a couple of days ago say that if there is, not these words, but if there is one word that would describe our presidency, would be recovery, our presidency ambitions and aims. So in the area of research, we would like to understand this twin transition to recovery as as a pathway, basically, for more sustainable future and also for more resilience of our societies. So overall, our presidency ambition generally is to, in the area of research and innovation, to embed research and innovation in all sectorial policies, because this we see as the best pathway to sustainable recovery and sustainable future. So what do I mean by this embedding of research and innovation or sectorial policies? It's for research to provide knowledge for evidence-based policy making, and also for these policies to request research and innovation in implementation of their objectives. This is what we are trying to achieve within all the activities that I will present in the next slides. We were really, to put it more into context, we were really encouraged now by the new, I must use this word, role and also the reputation of science, which was a consequence, a side effect, a positive consequence of COVID. We all remember how COVID pandemic began by giving us all a big lesson, I think, of the consequences when scientific advice is not followed. We remember still a year and a half ago, scientists gave advice and we thought it was exaggerated, and here we are. And also then this COVID then continued to induce like an outcry, I would say, of society to research to solve the problems, to develop vaccines, therapies, mitigation strategies, and also to translate the results into the health systems, or also digitization of education, which as a parent, actually, I must say I'm not a huge fan of anymore now. So it happens. But this is a big new role for science that COVID contributed to. So I think I would say that very briefly, we returned now to the world where science really holds a very prominent place for meeting all the ambitions that societies have. Like in the past, when it was tasked for getting us to the moon or solving energy problems, which basically we haven't seen since Vannevar Bush's time after World War II. So it was really a new place, very exciting moment for science, I would say. So if we're still here, if the role is still perceived like this, that I leave to your judgment. But as a presidency, we thought we owe science this place in society. And from this, we draw our ambition for the presidency. So basically, if I translate just finally this recovery into research and innovation ambitions, I would say that recovery for me is how to solve this equation where you have economic growth and European industrial competitiveness on one side, and the environment, the sustainability and quality of life you want to preserve on the other side. So this equation is really unsolvable until you introduce research and innovation to it. So this is what I mean by embedding research and innovation in all policies that are responsible for solving these challenges. Which is something we are seeing actually in all the initiatives of the European Commission lately. All of them have a really strong R&I component. So we just have to follow up this to national level and regional level and synchronize it. And for us, this is actually European research area. So which is what I'm coming to now. So we can cluster all our priorities basically into these four main dossiers. You know them very well, all four of them, especially European partnerships, I would say, as you know, and this is the only dossier that I don't have a separate slide on, because it's really simple for me to introduce it. You know that there are this package of European partnership, it's 3 legal acts, and soon maybe only 2. Because we are really impressed by the progress that the Portuguese presidency is making on this. We are really on a, Michael, Elizabeth, and other possible attachés who are here will confirm, but we are really on a fast track to finalizing the legislative process, first for Euro HPC, and then all other 9 European partnerships, joint undertakings, and also metrology. So there will be still some work, in particular formal, but also some negotiations still during Slovenian presidency, but we're really on a good track. I don't see really major problems. As a presidency, we are guided by a couple of things in European partnerships. First, by simplification. And here the Portuguese presidency had made a terrific progress in the central management of financial contributions of member states, which is something that the applicants will really appreciate. It's something they won't really notice, but they will appreciate because it will be a big simplification for them, not so much for member states, but for them definitely. We also, are guided by maximizing impact, so to make the co-investments more relevant to the objectives of the partnerships. Also to increase the openness and accountability of the partnerships. This is all, but this here I think we are really on a good track, which then actually can bring me to the second one, to the European research area. To save some time, I already touched upon this second one that you see on screen, this directionality in introduction. So for us, as I said, the directionality is placing research and innovation in the center of all policies, so that these policies, like transport, energy, health, or whatever, demand research and innovation for achieving their objectives. What directionality for us is not about is to impose any demands on institutions to deliver any products and services. This is not, we don't want science to be pressured, and it is not about constraining the autonomy of institutions, which is sacred really for us. So I would actually take this opportunity to state clearly, I think this is also what describes our presidency well, that knowledge creation is for us the fundamental value, because for us it's a value on its own, even before it's being applied. But still, we wouldn't have this mRNA vaccines, for example, without this fundamental curiosity-driven science, and also not without the investment we've been making in research infrastructures that made possible this exchange of scientific information we've seen in COVID, really unprecedented. And also, we would not have this without the decades-long building of collaborative networks in science and mobility. So all this is not forgotten, and so when we're speaking about directionality, it's more about demonstrating how a policy mix, a cross-sectorial approach, can solve these societal challenges. So in a way, as I put on the slides, it's linked to missions, because missions actually have a similar aim. But I won't dwell on this, because at the end, actually, success all boils down to governance. That's why I put it also on the first position. And as you know, our German colleagues established a new paradigm for European research area with these conclusions that complemented the Commission communication on ERA. And then now our Portuguese friends are focusing on the most important priority, on people, So what our task is as a presidency is to build a new governance that will answer to all these new demands. And when I say new demands, first I think what we need to take into account is that we have a bit of a new environment. We have much more increased commitment of the Commission to ERA, to delivering ERA, than we had in the last, I would say, 6-7 years. We have also, let's say, honest confession, or at least a realization from member states that the ambitions were quite good in adopting objectives and ambitions, but then we are not so good in delivering on this. So we have this commitment to increase the delivery. And also we've got this COVID new role for R&I that I mentioned. So when I say that we need to build a new governance, our idea is that it needs to be such that links research and innovation to all policies, that involves stakeholders, because they will at the end implement a lot of these new ambitions. So they need to be involved from the start, we think. We need to focus more on the delivery, on implementation than we have had before. This is the weakest link currently. And we also need more political commitment, because it's not enough to just promise. We need to deliver then. So political commitment is important on all levels. And finally, we need to bring all instruments together that we are using for pursuing our shared objectives. We've got a lot of processes and instruments. We've got European semester. We've got these recovery and resilience plans. We've got strategic planning in Horizon Europe. We've got missions that I mentioned. We've got partnerships. There's industrial ecosystems being set up within the remit of industrial policy. And we've got national reform. So we have to bring all this together if we want to deliver. So you will ask, at least I would ask if I was you, how? How are we going to do that? And that you see on the screen a little bit as a clue. We've begun our work already in this expert group that we've set up with the Commission and member states on the Forum for Transition. This is how the name is, but it's not really the forum. Well, I've seen on the screen to annotate the shared content. Well, why not? Let's see what happens. This is something new for me. So we've begun this work in this ERA Forum for Transition, and this should result in designing a pact for research and innovation. And this pact basically should have three, this is a bit of a sneak preview, I would say. It should have three parts. This is how it looks at the moment. We should define shared principles for ERA, the main priorities, and also frame our ambitions and the process. So basically targets and a process to meet these targets. So this last one, I would say, is the essential one, because it is about how do we go from agreeing on objectives to defining the EU national and regional level actions. And also, investments and reforms to deliver these actions. And then I'm still puzzled with this annotation option. Okay, it's something new for me in this WebEx as well. So we want to adopt this pact for research and innovation and define the rest of governance framework in the Council conclusions. So what is the rest? The rest is process for political validation of the midterm priorities. This is what we call, in our jargon, the ERA policy agenda. We want to define maybe the governance modes and possibly structures for coordination of each priority, and also to define how to include the stakeholders in the governance. We can talk more about that maybe later. So just to go, but you will see. I will mention stakeholder involvement a lot actually, because this is really important for us. And we are organizing here on the bottom. You see mention an ERA conference in October, I think. And initially we planned to follow the model of organizing a ministerial ERA conference, to build this political commitment. But we've decided now, we redesigned it and decided that we should actually give priority to stakeholder co-design. So the conference will not focus on ERA concepts and this design, but then actually on the implementation, so that it is really feeding into the work from 2021 onwards. And it will not be a stage for the ministers, they will be there as well, but a stage for the stakeholders. So this is really important for us, this communication with stakeholders. Not just stakeholders. Now we are also running a trio citizen science campaign called Plastic Pirates throughout the trio, and in Slovenia with the help of our National Biology Institute and also its counterparts in Germany and Portugal, we are engaging with pupils in primary schools, in engaging them in science. So the campaign is not as visible as we've planned because of COVID, obviously, because these experiments, samples need to be taken physically, and it's more difficult now to promote this. But we are making a point here, and we would like to inspire also other future presidencies with these citizen science campaigns. And as far as I'm informed, our French colleagues actually have this as a priority as well, involving citizens. To conclude on ERA, we've got other ERA priorities as well that we'll address. For example, research infrastructures. I already mentioned them in the beginning. Their importance. We will endorse and give more visibility to the new ESTRI roadmap that will be adopted this year. We are organizing a multi-day research infrastructure conference and ESTRI days, which again are a stakeholder event, really. And then the researchers' priority, which is the priority of our Portuguese colleagues. We are continuing this as well on their careers. We are organizing a Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions Conference, where we will focus more on early stage researchers and their reintegration after mobility, because we want to encourage more mobility. For us, even as a small country, this is extremely important to be really open and mobile, but then we need to also turn it into circulation, not a one-sided mobility. In Slovenia, we're setting up a lot of reintegration schemes. We already have one. We'll use RRF to have 2 more, and this is for us really an important topic because we want more mobility, but circulation, not one way, not a brain drain. So that would be all on ERA. And then just very briefly, I mentioned there are 4, so also international cooperation and gender equality. On the international cooperation, I mean, geographically, our political focus of the whole presidency is on Western Balkans. But in research and innovation, most of the important steps in this geographical area are being made just as we speak, actually. Next week, I think, or is the week after next, there's the big Ministerial Western Balkan steering platform and this joint declaration on agenda on innovation and research and the rest of the portfolio of Commissioner Gabriel, education, culture, youth, will be adopted. So, this is geographical focus, but not so much activities in the area of R&I in this respect. We will have I'm informed, a Western Balkan summit, but the topics there are still to be defined. So we'll see on research innovation there. But associations to Horizon Europe, this is very important. The initiative for this is all on the Commission side. But we're going to do everything to facilitate these associations. This is I don't need to explain the importance of this. But most of it's on the commissions, and the council is going to stand by and facilitate and be involved in this as well. And finally, the Commission is in 11 days from now adopting, hopefully, a communication on global approach to research and innovation. So when we see the content of this communication, we would like to consider organizing a council response to this. And now my final dossier is gender equality. This is actually part of ERA, of European Research Area, but it is so important that we are presenting it as a standalone priority, to give the emphasis on the importance of gender equality. We began actually already in December last year with a trio workshop that we organized with all member states in the margins of this ERA committee that you probably know. And we focused that debate on the impact and also on the opportunities of these gender equality plans, which is a novelty. There are some concerns, but also a lot of expectations from this. So we already began in December. We will actually have the first presidency event on 8th of July, which will be a final event of this gender action project. So also here we are taking this bottom-up approach, by including all the stakeholders in the conference, and then we will take the outcome of the conference. We will considering different ones, possibly a declaration or another outcome, which we will present to the ministers in the Compet Council under AOB probably, just to give it political visibility and keep it on the high political agenda. And also, gender equality for us is an important part which we should see in the pact for R&I, and hopefully also among the first ERA actions when it starts to be implemented. So this, I put all the event on my last slide, but I will put it out. It's just chronological order. I think I mentioned most in my presentation. So I don't see the clock, but I hope I haven't gone.
Draško, you're on mute.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Sergey, very systematically, like always. We do have here a question, for example, the next one. Will Slovenia be deepening the concept of regional ERA hub through the chat?
Well, this is something from the... Yeah, by the way, I don't see the questions in the chat. Maybe it's a private message to you. Well,
this was the private message to me.
Is a concept that stems from... Yeah, there's a bit of delay. I hope you can hear me well. The ERA hubs is something that stems from the ERA communication. It's an idea. And what we are not in that phase yet to say what will how the ERA, what the ERA implementation will focus on first. This is what I mentioned as a ERA policy agenda in our jargon. So obviously we will implement everything, but we will have to decide what to focus on really, because as I said, the implementation is the weakest link. And we can say, yeah, we'll focus on everything, but everyone who comes from smaller countries and also from bigger know that the capacities are limited. So we will probably at one point, and this will mature throughout our presidency, and it's not a presidency function, to be clear. We will see where we need to focus on what should be the first, 5 to 10 priorities. And once we agree on this, once the consensus mature on this, this is what we will call an ERA policy agenda. And then I come to the function of the presidency, but this is something we are exploring still. We think that once we agree on EU level, that would be between the stakeholders, the Commission, the member states, the regional authorities, that what should be the first priorities. Then we would see as a presidency that we should give some political validation to this, so that we have clear political commitment also to these priorities that are defined, so that they don't, they are not just a document, but they are, really, there's some commitment to this. And we would see this, for example, to be done through the Council conclusions. So if the ERA hubs are among these, this is to be seen in these exchanges when we will have to see what is the most burning issues. I would say it's a very interesting concept, but this is my own view on this. I see another question. The plans, actions, events as regards the research window of defense fund. Not
PDF,
in the area of Yeah, not in the area of research and innovation. So in the council's part, so in the council preparatory bodies in research and innovation, we don't have any events specifically focused on this. But this I would need to liaise with my colleagues who are covering defense, because the discussion on defense fund, including the research window, we were just informed, on the state of play of this in the research working party in the council. But this is all centralized with our colleagues that cover defense. So I can ask my defense colleagues and get back to you if you want on this.
Actually, SBRA is organizing an event on defense and research in defense, and specifically EDF calls on the 17th of June, together with the European Commission and EDA. So we're gonna, talk about it and explaining instruments possible and what calls will be. Okay, maybe we should move on. And if there are some more questions, of course, we can, answer them later on. Or you can even put them on chat, of course. Let's continue with our next speaker, which is Professor Boštjan Zalar, Director General Joseph Stefan Institute, our largest, Slovenian largest institute. And well, the floor is yours, Mr. Zalar. Do I see you?
Okay, you see me.
Great.
Hello to everybody. Yeah. Okay, let me just share. I prepared a short presentation of what I'm going to discuss. Okay, so it works.
Yeah,
do you see it?
It works. Yes.
It's on screen. Okay. Okay, I must say that I'm pretty much a freshman in this community. I just started my post a few months ago in December. I'm really glad to be at this post because there are really lots of problems and questions that we need to address in future years, also at our institute as well as wider in the European community. So just a short and brief introduction of the Institute. We basically function on two locations. One is the main location in the center of our capital. The other one is a research and training nuclear site out of Ljubljana. Some quantitative indicators that could, with using those, you could more easily understand how big we are and how many activities we cover. So actually, this is some comparison with the more largest and more famous institutes and scientific communities in Germany and in France. Okay, given the population, you have this overview of the number of employees. We are slowly approaching 1,100 employees. So basically, it's 0.05% of the population. So it's in this respect, we can be compared to both Max Planck Society in Germany and CNRS in France. But as far as the budget per person or per employee is concerned, you see that we are lagging a little bit behind that. Yeah. Okay. Given our size, we basically take 1/4 to 1/3 of the Slovenian public investment in research and development. And the scoreboard real side, you see that Slovenia is performing rather modestly in this respect. Although contribution from a private sector is relatively large, big, the contribution from a public sector has been decreasing for years. Now, in recent years, this has been improving year by year. And the final goal even supported by the new Slovenian legislation regarding research and innovations. The goal is to reach 1% of gross domestic product within 5 to 6 years. Okay. So now what can I say? When I took this new post, my working program was based on a few points. Definitely, we want to preserve the interdisciplinary character of our institute. I think we are the only institute of this character. Our fields of interest cover physics, chemistry, informatics, electronics, biochemistry, and all the interdisciplinary areas. We are focused both on basic as well as on applied science, and this is what we'll strive. It will stay like that in the future. We also want to preserve a relatively high international visibility of our institute. As I mentioned before, a new legislation is now being prepared in Slovenia, which will enable to provide for a more smoother transition to the mechanisms, to the implementation of the mechanisms provided by the European European pillars of financing the science. So we have great hopes for that. So hopefully we'll have this legislation till the end of this year. We definitely will support the open science, so we already started the procedures to implement this together with the new rules of European Union. And I must say that our basic, and I also anticipate this will be the most tedious task of my stay as a director, to try to upgrade our rather old research infrastructure. It's pretty much outdated. Slovenia has not invested a lot, so we are lagging, and this also represents problems for implementing the European mechanisms like European Research Council, particularly in view of younger scientists, which really experience problems due to the rigidity of the historic rigidity of the Slovenian system of how science is financed. Okay, if we make just a short overview of what we have achieved so far at our institute through Horizon 2020 program, I must conclude that GSI was present in all three pillars, all fields and all instruments at which, for sure, the research organizations were eligible partners for public research organizations. The biggest share of the financing was through the instrument of excellent science through European Research Council. I must say that even although 5 or 10 years ago we were lagging in the success regarding this mechanism, the situation has improved dramatically in recent years. We're currently running 4 ERC projects, and we will strive to get more and more. So in this respect, this has been quite an improvement for our institute. So even the younger generation now have recognized the importance of this mechanism, and our younger scientists find this as a natural way how to learn at a younger stage of their career, how to make your life easier by taking care of the financing. The success rate of our institute was higher than the average for EU. So typically it was about 18% in recent years. So we have nothing to complain about that. Okay, what about the new Horizon Europe? As I said before, we find ERC, as I stressed before, that basic science is our basic field of interest. Also, our ministry supports this concept of excellent science that we are active in. We find the ERC mechanism now I think it's called open science and Marie Curie actions. It should be an opportunity for both younger and established researchers. And what is particularly important is their ability to design teams and equip labs. As I said before, our system for years was relatively rigid. The main funding came from the so-called program financing, and it was all bound to like 5, 6, 7 year cycles. And this is nothing. This is something that you cannot rely on now in the modern times. We know we all experienced the COVID crisis, and we now, I think, in the recent year, we learned that even the European Union needs to provide very flexible and fast mechanism how to adopt and follow the changes and the crisis in the society. Okay. As far as missions as a new mechanism within this European framework are concerned, I must gladly find out that JSI is part of it. We're focused particularly on climate neutral cities. But the problem is we need also active participation from the government, from the cities, and implementation of appropriate national regulatory mechanisms. As I said, regulation, financing, standards, which have to come on time. So it means within a short time to be able to follow the ideas on how to implement research and innovation within the mission mechanisms. Yeah. Let me here also comment that we anticipate that the rules of functioning between framework programs and structural funds will be harmonized. Currently, those different rules pose huge administrative burden on participating organizations. So in Slovenia, we strongly rely on structural funds. As I mentioned before, our goal is to update our outdated infrastructure, so the structural funds are one of the mechanisms. Unfortunately, we can conclude that through the RRF programs, Recovery and Resilience Framework, the research and innovations have not been covered very well. Okay, but taken the numbers from 10 billion euros that Slovenia will get out of it now I think it's about 70 to 100 million euros devoted to research. So if you calculate yourself, it's 0.6%. It's higher than the current percent of the public investment in the science, which at the moment I think is 0.55%, something like that. Yeah. Okay. Let me also comment on the new pillar of the Horizon Europe EIC. And the European Institute of Innovation and Technology. Recently, I discovered news that an agreement has been signed to make the cooperation between EIT and EIC much stronger. As far as the EIC is concerned, definitely one of Slovenia's priorities is to establish a more closer link between EIC portfolio and the national portfolios. This is very important. So with only EIC portfolio without effective national portfolio, we don't see the light at the end of the tunnel, how this new EIC mechanism will function. Okay, let me also note that it's a new mechanism, so there will be probably some tedious discussion in future years how this mechanism will be implemented. Let me remind you on the discussion that was taking place 1 year ago about the principles of ERC. Everybody thought, okay, everything is clear how we should function, but there was a clash of ideas 1 year ago inside the ERC, which needed to be settled. So our opinion is that definitely those clashes will arise over the years, but now the EU will have to find mechanism how to solve these clashes and changes effectively. What we anticipate for these mechanisms that they will function on a longer term, that all the work programs will be adapted to the current situation, and we shall not function with the principle, if you are with us now, that's it, you cannot join later on. This is something that we experienced a little bit during the preparation of our national recovery and resilience framework. So hopefully this will not happen with the future mechanisms of Horizon Europe and the structural funding. Okay, my fourth point here was this that I already mentioned, framework programs versus structural funds. We anticipate for the European Union or European Commission to try to provide stronger bonding between this. So all in all, this should make a smoother transition from the ideas of basic science into the final product, or okay, in other words, more accelerating movement up the technology readiness level ladder. Okay. So what I want to stress is this 3% EU GDP goal. I think there should be synchronized reforms in line with European research area principles, and there should also be binding national targets and priorities as well as policies to achieve this goal. So Slovenia, at least on the paper, made a big step towards that. So now we will have legislative obligation to reach this goal in the next few years. Okay, we also expect that all these programs will strive to achieve geographical balance in different committees, working groups, expert and evaluation teams. Currently, you can see that, for instance, in ERC governing board, I don't know, in the council or the advisory board, I don't know the official name of it. There are 22 members, and only 3 of them are coming from Eastern European cities. Okay, initially when I introduced my working program, I forgot to say that definitely we will support gender equality. I must say that currently also we are preparing our institutes, our institutional rules how to implement this. By the way, this is now also a requirement, and I think it's right. It was the last time to implement that, so that the institution needs to demonstrate that it applies to these rules. So I think this is now a national initiative, and I think the situation as far as gender equality will settle within a short time frame. Okay, this is all I wanted to say. So now I'm ready for questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Zalar. It was very informative, I would say. I think people got a lot of information about Jutta Stefan Institute, but also of your views to many European issues. And I didn't get any question on the chat regarding your presentation, and I'm sure later on will be also opportunity to because we dedicated some time for questions and answers, and also Sergey is still here, so he could still get some questions and of course answer them. Therefore, I suggest we move forward to the next speaker, the last speaker, the next and the last, Professor Anderluch. director of National Institute of Chemistry in Slovenia, and I'm sure he will add many interesting issues to the discussion. Gregor, please.
Dear Draško, ladies and gentlemen, I'm just sharing the the screen.
Yeah, we can see it. Yeah.
Okay, great, excellent. So, ladies and gentlemen, first let me thank to Slovenian Business and Research Association and IGLU for organizing this event. I would like to thank you for the opportunity to present some of our views and just briefly present our institute. It's nice to hear from the representative Možina how Slovenia aims to contribute to the European research area with activities during our presidency. As he said rightly, the COVID crisis exposed the vulnerability of our societies and highlight science as one of the main pillars that we need to strengthen and nourish and support. This is all well obvious for us, but I'm not sure if the societies in general perceive this in the same way. I strongly believe that framework program, European framework program, is one of the pillars of Europe, and it's nice to see that we all can contribute with all different activities to its success. It is hugely important for countries like Slovenia. We are a small EU 13 country. As you see from this map, I had to enlarge it in order for you to see some of our cities apart from Ljubljana. We are so small, it doesn't mean that we do not cooperate with whole of the Europe, and we have activities also all over the world. So our institute and Institute Jožef Stefan, as it was presented before, we are the endpoint users of mechanisms, policies that are generated in the European space. So it's very important not only for the projects that we can obtain and run at our institutions, but also I see a very important point, and that was also highlighted by Mr. Možina, that Europe can actually give a really strong political messages on how research environment should or could be organized in member states. For example, the role of research, development, innovations in RRF funds, in use of cohesion funds, should be in the center stage, and we hope that we can achieve this at national levels. So just to start with, I'm also in the role of Slovenian coordination of public research institutes. So I just give you a brief overview of Slovenian research space. In Slovenia, 4 public universities operate and 16 public research institutes that constitutes approximately 7,000 researchers. So far, if we speak about excellent science, we were able to attract 17 ERC grants. We contribute to our as much as we can as a small country to European infrastructural capacities. For example, just recently, a high-performing computer cluster was installed in Maribor, and it will be a part of a wider European infrastructure on computing. So I think we as a country, we are very well aware of the importance of European research space, and we try to contribute as much as we can to this to the activities at the European level. This is just one slide to show the portfolio of what we do at our institute. We are the second largest institute in Slovenia. Our funding is a combination of Slovenian, of national resources, and of course we are heavily rely also on European funding. For example, in last year we were involved in 25 Horizon projects. Our areas of research cover really a wide array of activities, and we address the crucial societal challenges with our research, such as health, environmental protection, circular economy, sustainable energy, and so on. So we are very well aligned with priorities such as green transition and digitalization, as were mentioned at the beginning. We are committed to excellent science, and I think this should be and should remain one of the most important pillars of European research. We are in a huge competition at the global level, and we should keep in mind that we should focus on, because excellent research is basics for everything else, for innovations, for translation to products. So hereby, I think we all in Europe should be well aware of that and put a lot of emphasis on this. How excellent research can help in translating to products. I'm just highlighting one of our examples on this slide. It is in area of development of new materials for hydrogen economy. For example, one of our young starting grantees was able to obtain ERC grant with his proposal to prepare better materials. But not only that, this has a huge promise for commercialization. So he was successful also in obtaining a proof of concept grant. Then part of this knowledge was transferred to a newly formed SME, Recatalyst, and we will try to bring this kind of research to a higher technological readiness level by all the mechanisms we can use in Slovenia, but then also at the European level. So the inclusion of innovation in the next framework program is hugely important, and we salute these efforts and hope that it will develop to support Europe's activities in this area. If I just give some of the emphasis on the current European framework program from the viewpoint of a small relatively small research institute, what can we gain from it, for example? So one very important issue is excellent science, as said. I think that ERC must have leading position in European science because of its groundbreaking nature of research and possibility that it gave to Europe in a wider global context. But not only that, also because from this research, many positive outcomes are generated for the society. So as a country, we need to strive to obtain more of these ERC grants, and we should do that by different means. Of course, by providing appropriate research infrastructure so that this kind of grants can be executed at our institutions. I think one of the very important mechanisms of support of younger generation of researchers are Marie Skłodowska-Curie mechanisms. This is very important for a country like ours for several reasons. One is that these grants have inherent mobility component associated with it, and this is hugely important for internationalization of Slovenian science. In this way, we can attract young foreign researchers, and when you combine this scheme with Seal of Excellence scheme, then it really can give a very useful outcome. And I can confirm this for our institution. For example, we have at the moment 7 Marie Curie Fellows and further 7 with Seal of Excellence, which is, I believe, quite nice. I see this combination of European and national funds also a good investment of money from Slovenia. And I'm happy to hear that in the new framework program, the government decided to enlarge funding for Seal of Excellence, which will enable us also to allow running projects in other different that are very well evaluated in other different schemes. This Marie Skłodowska-Curie mechanism is therefore hugely important for countries as ours. The infrastructures were mentioned by Mr. Možina as well as one of the emphasis on Slovenian presidency. This is great to see that this is one of the priorities. As mentioned, we need to establish appropriate research environment for the high-level projects, and in this way, we would be happy to see schemes and possibilities, capabilities that we do that, that we can participate in this at the European level. I would like to mention, maybe in the context of the third pillar, of the second and third pillar, that technology infrastructures are maybe also something that we need to consider and bring forward, maybe in the next framework programs, such as centers of excellences for pilots, for demonstrations on how to bring research to higher technological readiness level, as highlighted by our example. So I think countries like ours would hugely benefit from initiatives like this. Of course, we are very interested in widening because it allows us to be engaged with excellent science in Europe, and it's nice to see that in the current framework program there is a lot of emphasis on this mechanism. We salute that, and we think that with interesting projects that will direct this gap, that indeed the gap will start to be lessened. Finally, I will just mention partnership. We think that this is hugely important, of course, to be included in partnerships and contribute also in this way to the shaping of roadmaps and development of roadmaps. We are part of many different partnerships from areas of research that we work with, and we believe and strive to be engaged in further partnerships also for the future. So here meetings like today's are also very important, because we can share these different experiences and our aims for the future. I would like to thank you again for the opportunity to briefly present our institute and our ideas for the future. A bit longer presentation is available with Draško and Slovenian Business Research Association if some more information is required. Draško, thank you very much again for the organization and for giving us opportunity.
Thank you, Gregor. it is not very often that we have this opportunity to have some input from concrete institutes, what they do, what they think, how they feel about certain European programs. I mean, these are some concrete issues we can hear, and I think it's very valuable for every one of us. I mean, I hope also for our IGLO friends and of course other participants at this event. In the meantime, I got one question regarding the this 3% target that we have, investments or financing of research and science and innovations, 3% of GDP. And of course, this is not just the narrow governmental budget part is became, with the previous government, became the legislative obligation. And at the moment, we have approximately 0.5% of GDP for research and science and innovations within narrow GDP, within narrow budget of the government. Of course, altogether, our figure is about 2%. But just this part for the government is became legislative obligation, of course, with certain time frame. And it should come close to 1% in 2 years' time. So do we have any other question really? Please, I mean, you can ask directly now. Not need to write now the question. Do you have any question for Sergey? Maybe any additional, more precise question, or any maybe additional question for Professor Zahler or Professor Anderluch? They're all still here. Sergey, there was a lot of discussion about ERA, lately. Even we had some discussion within IGLO, recently. And there was some I would say, some worrying comments about how ERA will be functioning in the future. Namely, that the European Commission is not so responsive. There is a lack of, let's say, public discussion on it and stuff like that. I mean, would you comment? Would you make any comment on that?
Happily, actually, not only on that, also on the questions in chat and what also Professor Zahler and Professor Anderluch mentioned. Indeed, Draško, that actually is also something that the member states thought when we started to debate about what ERA is and what it should be. What year or a year and a half or 2 years ago, actually. This has a bit of a history. We've got a lot of reports and a lot of opinions already. And what we saw was that the approach that the Commission have taken around 2012, 13, when there was a Commissioner Geoghegan Quinn was the commissioner then, that it declared ERA completed. You remember, they declared ERA is now completed, and now the ball is at the member states, and they have ownership. Then they started to sign some pacts with the institution, etc. But since then, since 2014, since the ERA was completed, we haven't seen much progress. And so now what we see is actually what we get the message from the Commission is we're back. And they are ready to take more proactive role, which we acknowledge actually is required. And we also see that greater coordination is required. So actually, this I would start to reply to the question from Jupp, from Eder, but which is actually a question for Professor Anderluch and Professor Zahler. But I think indeed the reforms, the national reforms are essential, including the investments. So I think when we set an objective on your level that we all can share, because we won't share all objectives always that we should pursue together, but some of them we will. For example, I don't know, in assessing so researchers' assessment for career progression, for example, that this is now purely citation based. That's the most important criteria. But now we see the need to have a diversification of researcher careers. So also teaching or public involvement, involvement with the economy, which doesn't count really in the what we currently perceive as excellent science. That should also be taken into account. For example, we could decide on that this is an objective that we should pursue reforms in this together. And then I think if we don't have actions on national level, then the objective has been in vain. We cannot do this on EU level unless the Commission decides to impose it on member states with a directive, which will never happen. Never. It will never pass the Council for sure. So actually, this kind of coordination of reforms, learning from one another, and then pursuing on national levels with actions that at the end contribute to the shared objective is really important. So what we would have in mind, now I'm speaking on personal behalf because this is not something which is consolidated yet, is that after we decide on the common objective, we need to set out in our national plans the actions, the reforms, the investments which contribute to this. And then, as I said, Commission is back, at least declaratively. We should see what the role of the Commission could be in supporting this, in advising how we should do this, and also in then coordinating this. And we've got a lot of coordination mechanisms and tools in Europe already, RRF, European semester, everything. So this, I think, is really important. On the investment, I agree. I mean, this is we should probably have a similar approach. We are not yet legislatively there. This is in the proposal. I think Professor Anderlucher, Professor Zarar mentioned that this is will be a legislative obligation soon. Hopefully, this proposal of law is in the legislative process now nationally. Now I'm speaking as a Slovenian attaché. But it is indeed, this is crucial. We're not doing that bad actually comparatively in Europe, so we are a bit above 2% already, and in the public indeed is what we need to increase even more. I think we're about 0.7, but we were on a very good track to even surpassing the 3%, but then the financial crisis hit, and since 2009 we've been seeing decline that only recently we've picked up again in increasing. So that would be my reply. The harmonization of rules, Professor Zalar, between Horizon Europe and structural funds, this indeed I think is crucial. What we have achieved on both sides, on Horizon Europe and on the cohesion side, is that the synergies and rules are now much more possible. We have the option of using structural funds with implying the state aid exemption for example, for seal of excellence, for financing our participation in the partnerships. We have the possibility of transferring part of the envelope directly into Horizon Europe so that our participants can be funded from that as well. That there's been in the state aid framework is being revised so that the exemption will apply to research innovation. So there is a lot that has been done, and there is the possibility to harmonize rules as well. But both Horizon Europe and cohesion funds, now I don't want to speak on behalf of the Commission because they should actually be here to defend themselves, but so if I play a little bit the role of devil's advocate, they have different objectives. And we have included the option for the managing authorities to apply the Horizon Europe rules, even when using structural funds, but this is indeed their prerogative. So that remains then, it's still an open question, it's a possibility, and I hopefully will be used. And indeed, I also take note that RRF is not as ambitious in investments in research infrastructures and in research and innovation as it could be. There's always room for improvement, but the main objectives of RRF are a little bit specific. And I think what our investments into this excellence that should follow actually is in the operation program for the structural investments, and obviously from the normal, I would say, in quotes, national budget investments. So these, together with the legislative obligation that hopefully will follow soon, I hope we will see increased investments in these parts.
At the moment, the figure is about 2% of GDP, actually, yeah, altogether, of course, all investments, yeah. Thank you, Sergey, for this input. Do you have any other question? Actually, we do have here one question, which is rather, how should I say, general. And, well, the best, I just read it. Investments into research infrastructures in different member states have had varying degrees of success. For Slovenia, which lags behind in this area, as well as other countries, it's important to know if there have been some EU-level evaluation of the impact of these investments. I'm sure these investments have positive impact on growth and development of the country, I'm sure. But still, maybe, Sergey, you would know, is there any concrete study made on that?
Yeah, I've just seen one actually a week ago. I don't have the title here, but I've seen that there are definitely. Actually, it was a study. Now I remember more the context by the Commission. I think even DG Regio, because it studied how investments in research infrastructures from structural funds impacted also the economy and the scientific systems. And as far as I've browsed through it, the abstract. The impact has been significant and very positive. And there is even, this usual calculation, €1 invested produces X euros, more than one, in economy, in taxes and everything. So yes, there are studies on this. There are proofs on how research infrastructures are essential for everything. It's infrastructures and people. Huh? These are the two ingredients you need.
I'm sure Professor Mikhailovich asked this question because he wants to Slovenia to invest more in infrastructure, but you would like to add something, Dragan?
Yeah, I think it's very important to know where are the failures in order not to repeat them. So we have had different examples in Slovenia, and there are many different examples in Europe of research infrastructure investments. Going up to the tune of a very large amounts of money, like hundreds of millions. But it's not
like billions, yeah.
Yeah, but it's not at all clear how that has been, what has been the impact of those, both on basic science and long-term and short-term, and on the technology or development of industry. So those different aspects would be crucial to I think this is something that could be addressed maybe during the presidency, even as a special topic of discussion. And Slovenia is not the only country which is lagging behind. Or there's always somebody lagging, but Slovenia has a special role in this respect. So it's very important for us, and it's very good for us to lead in this way. To see what are the based on the real hard facts, evaluations, using metrics which are clear and transparent, not political or other kind of evaluations, in order to make the best use of public money. I mean, this is the only way to justify such investments, and I think this is a crucial point to address. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah. Good point. Of course.
May I comment? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, please.
This goal of 3% was mentioned before. Okay. Now we anticipate this jump from the current 2% to 3%. It's not only up to the public sector where the increase of 0.5 is anticipated. We have to increase investments from the private sector. And I forgot to mention before, okay, it was not time. What about private partnership, public partnerships in science, which is a mechanism that practically doesn't exist in Slovenia. So there's no experience on that. So we have great hopes also regarding rebuilding our infrastructures to provide for new models how to do that, as well as venture capital, which, as far as I know, is practically non-existent, particularly in field of the research and innovations. Yeah.
Thank you for this input. Yes, I mean, it's quite true, really. We are lagging behind in PPT, I mean, these public-private partnerships, PPP, quite a lot, especially, I would say, in EU 13 countries. I mean, I would say quite some Western countries developed some models with so-called blended finance, and even in research and innovations sector, so to say. Regarding private investments in science in Slovenia, according to statistics, we are doing quite well. But of course, we can still improve this figure and come closer to 3% altogether. I mean, with the altogether financing. I mean, obviously, we have a lot of questions here and a lot of things to be done, I would say, in Slovenia, but also in some other countries. Do we have any other maybe question from non-Slovenian
Draško,
participant? Yes, please.
There was a question from Jörg Roet about.
Exactly. Yes, I was just to read it.
Okay.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead, Gregor.
So the question is how we can convince the funders to provide more funds for science and research from structural funds. And what do we mean by how Europe can help this in the regional context? This is a very important question, and indeed we have quite high problems with persuading our politicians, at least in Slovenia. Some of the countries are very good in this, and we are trying to understand how they manage to persuade and invest so much in research infrastructures. I will just highlight Czech and Poland because they really did big steps in the last program in that respect, and we somehow are looking to them as good examples. And how Europe and this is kind of being reflected now even in discussions about recovery and resilience fund and cohesion funds that will need to prepare a good plan. And how Europe can help in this is by setting clear messages that research, development, and innovation should be a center, and all measures should be somehow set up around that. So I think it was great to see that Slovenian presidency will be committed to promote research, development, and innovation in all sectorial policies. So this is a good step forward, I would say. And one example, for example, could be that when we submitted the first version of RRF, it got quite a lot of comments from European Commission, and setting up clear goals, what this should achieve, is one way on how then at the national level we can persuade politics to put more emphasis on these areas.
Thank you. Yes, we have another question, which is for Sergey. Maybe just before that, what Dragan said regarding this study, obviously, I mean, if you have a good study, and there were many in the past, of course, Sergey mentioned the recent one, this study should be shown to politicians, and saying, look, this is the case. It's serious study about it, how money invested in research science, I mean, multiplies the effects out of it later on. The problem is that politicians, even such serious studies, don't take into account many times, but still, I mean, we should improve our effort and get more money for science and research anyway. Even in Horizon, remember, we had the idea of Moedas, the previous commissioner, that we would hit 100 billion target, but now we ended with the lower figure. So even in European, let's say, political compromises, science and research stayed short a little bit, remember, we had all these discussions already. But okay, let's go to this one. This is an interesting question, which refers to, I would say, of course, some third countries like Balkan countries. You mentioned them, Sergey, which is also one of the priority. But of course, it refers also, since Simon asked, Simon, it refers also to, I would say, Switzerland, which is still negotiating the association with Horizon, and of course UK, which has the deal already. But maybe you can add something here, Sergey, please.
Very briefly indeed, but before I do,
Yeah.
actually, I just must express my agreement with Professor Mihailovic and others that, you know, if I said evidence-based decision-making is essential, obviously I agree that we need evidence, and then it needs to be taken into account. Otherwise, we can remember when we didn't, as I said at the beginning of COVID crisis, when we didn't take evidence into account, what happened. So yes, I fully agree. On associations, well, again, this is a question for the Commission, but we have the category A of, this is the EEA countries, which are practically associated. We have UK, which now all the conditions have been fulfilled for this protocol 1, which will associate them to be adopted. So hopefully this will happen still in May. Fingers crossed, we will see. And then we have the categories B and C, so the neighborhood countries and the countries acceding to the Union, so including the Western Balkans that you mentioned, Draško. And the information I have from the Commission is that these talks are very well underway, and that this process should begin, not just begin, but conclude at least until let's say autumn, but hopefully even before. And the Council is not very much legally involved in this, but politically indeed we are. And as you have seen, when we adopted Horizon Europe, we also made the declaration that the Council and Member States will be involved in these talks as well as we can by our institutional framework. And then we've got countries of the categories D. And you, Draško, mentioned actually the most important one from this category, Switzerland, because Switzerland has been part of the framework program since they began. And this is a bit awkward, I must say, situation now that the timeline doesn't at the moment look so promising. And it goes well beyond research and innovation. It's about really general institutional the relations between EU and Switzerland. They are renegotiating what they call a framework agreement. They have currently 4 agreements, EU and Switzerland, and they form a package as a whole, and they are negotiating what they call, I think, institutional framework agreement or something like this, basically an umbrella for these 4. And this has been going on endlessly. We've had a referendum and another referendum, and then back and forth. And the way I'm informed is that and it's completely
Switzerland changed negotiator in the meantime also.
Yeah, they're really dedicated now. So I don't know where the problem is, but hopefully it will. I mean, we have really what I can be very explicit on is high interest to proceed with this, but it is beyond research and innovation. So once it enters the Council, because it has to, this category has to enter the Council, we will do everything to facilitate this. The Faroe Islands will also be associated very soon. And then we've got a lot of other interests around the world, Singapore, Japan, New Zealand, Canada, Australia, South Korea, and these are more in early stages, but the Commission reports that at least these countries are looking into the program, and we will see as they develop. We'll keep you updated. But this was all on behalf of the Commission. I can't say on behalf of the Commission, but I can tell you what I know, but the ball is mostly in their court.
Simon, I think you get quite a good answer. I would say it's also a lot on you, on Swiss. I mean, how you negotiate, obviously. There is, I think, a strong commitment on the European Commission side, I'm sure. Okay, do we have any other question? Simon, you want to step in?
No, I think, I mean, we are aware, obviously, of the situation that we face in the case of the institutional agreement. I also know that it's the position of the Ministry of Research and Innovation that there is legally no link between Horizon Europe and the institutional agreement, but of course a political link that the Commission makes. This is the only thing I can say to that, but that's also mentioned oftentimes also in interviews or newspaper publications.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Simon.
Thanks for the answer also. Yeah.
Okay, do we have something else here? Yeah, no, this is basically it. Yes, Professor Zahler, please.
Okay, I just wanted to say something before this harmonization of framework program rules and structural funds was discussed. One problem, I think it's not only experienced in Slovenia, but maybe in other economies as well, is the participation of both research organizations and companies within all the future EIC and also the current EIT programs, is the state aid rules. We experience huge problems, and something should be done on the European level about it. I think it's really not that hard. You know, we all have the example from COVID, you know, because once COVID appeared, everybody forgot about state rules. You know, the states invested directly into that. Nobody discussed that this was basically the breach of the agreed legislation. But okay, you know, COVID was a specific situation, and a rather mediocre situation with financing of science, particularly in tiny economies, is also an acute situation. So from this point of view, I don't think it should be that hard to do something in this area.
Good point. Yes, thank you. Thanks a lot. Okay, we're slowly coming to our end, I would say, because we already bridged the time that we planned. But it's always, you know, difficult just to cut, because if somebody is discussing something, you cannot just interrupt him or her. There's another message here. Okay, it's one conference that we are invited. You got it all in the chat. So thanks a lot to everyone, really, to speakers, to IGLO, to all participants, and of course, we'll be here for you also in the future. We'll organize quite some events this year, also within the presidency, in cooperation with our permanent representation of Slovenia to European Union. And also, of course, we are organizing quite a lot of events of our own. The one I just mentioned of defense, which will be how to use European Defense Fund, which will be on the 17th of June. On Tuesday, actually, we are organizing brokerage event on culture. We have 170 participants already, and both Joseph Stefan Institute and National Institute of Chemistry are participating there as well. It's culture, but it's also digitalization in culture. So that's why they are participating as technical institutes, so to say. And we have a lot of, other participants, 170 altogether. Today we have 150 registered, but around 100 participating. Now we are just at figure 53, so people have to leave. And I also, again, thank you all, and all the best and nice weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you for organizing.
Thanks again for inviting us. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.